Hey, what's up folks? This is the Vaio FE 14.1. This is an affordable $700 14-inch laptop that could be a really good back-to-school type purchase for your family or for yourself if you're going to school and you have 700 bucks lying around. It's available at Walmart. It does have some compromises if you compare it to the $1,000 and up type category, but it also has some features that I think that make those more expensive laptops look a little inferior. So we'll take a look at all of that. We'll start with the chassis and the design. We'll talk performance and some of those key features. So first off, right off the bat, I love the branding of Vaio here on the lid, but unfortunately it is surrounded by a very fingerprint heavy, attractive chassis. So if you got any grease at all on your fingers, it's probably going to rub off, but what are you gonna do? Okay, there are also these two little knobs, these rubbery knobs on the top, one here and one here, because when you lift this up, it has an ergo hinge, so it will actually lift the chassis up off the table that you're using so that you get better airflow, and we'll talk about that in a second. But before we get to that, let's talk I/O. You get a full-size Ethernet adapter. It's not normal at all. Full-size HDMI out, two USB-A ports and a USB-C port, and then on the other side, we have another USB port, a full-size SD card reader, and a headphone jack. But compromises. Unfortunately, you will have to carry around a proprietary barrel cable in order to charge this laptop. Now, it can charge over USB-C, but it's going to be slower than charging through this, unfortunately. You'll notice that there's quite a bit of intakes and outputs on this laptop. Despite being a U-series laptop, it is not Evo certified, and it unfortunately does ramp up on the fans from time to time. This particular SKU that I'm reviewing is 700 bucks. It has a Core i5 1230U processor, 8 gigs of RAM, and a 0.5 terabyte SSD. You can upgrade this yourself. I popped open the back when I was first playing with it. You can replace the SSD. There are 2 RAM slots. It's quite upgradable for a thin and light laptop. Now, it's not the thinnest, it's not the lightest, unfortunately, but it is definitely not going to put any extra, uncomfortable weight on your backpack or, in your briefcase or however you plan on carrying this thing around. So on the keyboard deck, which is super cool, is you get full-sized arrow keys and you get dedicated buttons for home, page up, page down, and end, which also have secondary functionality for controlling your media. Now, it's not uncommon to have secondary media functionality on keys. What is uncommon, however, is on a 14-inch thin and light laptop to have these dedicated buttons and the full-size arrow keys. So for consideration, this is the 10th generation ThinkPad Carbon X1. This is like $2,000 to $4,000, and it has compressed arrow keys. It does have dedicated buttons for page up and page down, but it doesn't have them for, it does not have the secondary functionality. So it's kind of all baked in, and so there's a little bit of extra spacing to make that work. It's a great keyboard. It's probably one of the best for its space, but you don't get quite the size that you get here, which I think is super cool. But compromises. There is no way to lock that secondary functionality. So if you want your default keys for like the function row to be the volume up and down button or the backlight for the keyboard, you have to hold down function and press those mapped secondary keys. Whereas these more expensive laptops, or even some of the less expensive laptops made by more, popular manufacturers will have that. So for example, this is the Yoga 6 from Lenovo, and it's under $1,000, and you can function lock. So there's just some compromises you have to make, but then on the other hand, it's like, well, wow, they put full-size arrow keys. That's super cool. If I were playing like Dark Forces or something, I'd be super happy right now. Okay, you also get dedicated buttons for the trackpad to simulate mouse clicking. So if you're somebody who doesn't like to tap because maybe you're slippery or you just don't like the way it feels, you can use these dedicated mouse buttons. You'll see this on something like a ThinkPad Carbon, but you won't see it on a Yoga or a MacBook or an HP or basically any other consumer laptop out there. This is also fingerprint heavy. You probably are noticing that. But at least one area where it's fingerprint heavy actually has some value, and that's right here with the fingerprint reader. There's no Windows Hello facial recognition, but at least you can unlock it with your fingerprint. You also get solid status lights to let you know when the SSD is in use. Kind of an old school feature where it doesn't really matter so much anymore because it's not mechanical, but it's there and it looks kind of fun if you ask me. You can find out if it's charging, and you can also get a status of if it's on or not. But I guess you'd also figure that out by looking at the display. Now, the display it's fine. It's a 14-point-inch LCD, 1080p max. Unfortunately, with this display, it's not a great aspect ratio considering the size. So 14 inches at 1080p looks pretty narrow. It looks wide. So if you want to watch movies on this, I guess in that case, you won't get much in the way of black bars, so that's good. But if you're using this for productivity, 16 by 10 is definitely going to be better for you. But again, $700, so you kind of have to take compromises. Now, one of the cool things about this is that you get the THX software. So now, in disclosure, this was provided to me by THX and not directly from Vaio. And that's because THX offers some really great equalization and presets for THX Spatial Audio, which is a proprietary engine that they use for audio. Now, if you were to plug in your headphones, this is going to sound a lot better than what I'm going to show you now over just my iPhone recording this thing. But keep that in mind, like if you're looking for exceptional audio, this is an excellent option, and it's again only $700. So here's take a listen to the crab rave for a moment. Sounds pretty good. Now I'm going to compare it to the ThinkPad Carbon, which again is $2,000 to $4,000. You'll notice that with the Carbon, it's going to sound quite good. In fact, I think it sounds louder, but I don't think it sounds better. Here we go. Again, louder, but I don't think better. Here we go back to the Vaio. Carbon. So now with the Carbon, you don't have THX, you don't have that built-in DAC, you're not quite the same type of audio. So anyhow, it's not gonna sound quite as good. Now, as far as performance goes, certainly impressed with what I have here, just with the i5. It can open your Microsoft applications pretty quickly, under 3 seconds, which is my policy, it's my rule. And you also have access to Microsoft Edge and Teams and everything that Windows 11 has to offer, and it all runs very well, again, just with an i5 and 8 gigs of RAM, which continues to surprise me, even after all this time, where I thought you have to go to 16 gigabytes. Okay, let's take a look at this application. So this is for THX Spatial Audio. You can turn it on or off. There are a number of preset functions in here for the equalizer, gaming mode, voice mode, etc. I tend to keep it in voice mode because I use laptops mostly for work and for conferencing. But if you wanted to, you can just adjust these different levels, which is again super helpful, and you can adjust the volume leveling. Now, there isn't too much more to offer outside of this, but again, it's $700, super awesome. Now, someone's at my door, so I'm just gonna take that as my sign that we've wrapped up this review. Excellent device at $700, and if you're looking to check it out, I'll put a link in the description. Cheers.